Let me present you with a puzzle. Two identical twins leave a bar at 2 o'clock in the morning equally drunk. They get into identical cars and each starts off towards home. At some point, each of the two drivers drifts off of the road and hits a tree. However, for one of the twins, there's somebody standing next to the tree and that person is killed. The other twin just hits a tree. I looked this up and I'm no lawyer, so don't quote me on this, but I found a couple of sources that told me that the punishment for a first offense DUI in Colorado includes the following: 5 days to 1 year in jail, potentially suspended, $600 to $1,000 fine, 48 to 96 hours of community service, 9 months suspended license, and 2 years probation. In contrast, the penalty for vehicular homicide in Colorado while driving under the influence is 4 to 12 years in a Colorado prison and or a fine of $3,000 to $750,000. So here's the puzzle. The punishment should fit the crime, right? That's the popular slogan. Why would one twin deserve a harsher punishment than the other? Yeah, we'd say that it's because somebody was killed in one case but not the other, but why does that matter? That was just a matter of luck. How does luck make one person more deserving of punishment than the other? Consider the following case. You're driving down the road normally, obeying the speed limit, paying attention, when some kid runs out from behind a parked truck and you hit and kill the kid. It results in a death. Do you warrant a charge of vehicular homicide? Well, no, because it wasn't your fault. It also wasn't the twins' fault that there was somebody standing next to the tree. The driver didn't put that person there. Yes, it is the driver's fault for driving under the influence, but on that account, both twins are equally at fault for driving under the influence. The part that each driver was responsible for, the two drivers did equally. So their culpability must be equal as well. If they get different levels of punishment, then it seems punishment can't be proportional to culpability. Here's another example. We have two hunters. Again, let's make them identical twins using identical rifles. They're out hunting when they hear a noise in some distant brush. They both fire into that brush. When they investigate, they discover that they killed another hunter. The victim died as a result of a single gunshot wound. One of the twins hit and killed the hunter. The other missed. One hunter will be charged with negligent homicide. The other might not be charged at all. The issue of luck also shows up in the law when we talk about attempted crimes. This time, our two twins become professional assassins. They're told to assassinate a federal prosecutor. Each is working independent of the other and doesn't even know that the other is on the same contract. Now, in one case, the assassin kills the target. But for the other, a pigeon happens to fly into the path of the bullet, and the only thing the second twin kills is a pigeon. One gets charged with murder. The other gets charged with attempted murder, which carries a substantially smaller penalty. Why? They both tried equally hard to kill the victim. The thing that prevented one from being successful was the fact that some pigeon was having a bad day. How is luck relevant to the amount of punishment one deserves? Thomas Nagel, in the article Moral Luck, identified 4 ways in which luck can play a role in the magnitude of one's moral culpability. As we've seen above, these factors also play a role in one's legal culpability, in the amount of punishment that one can expect and, in some cases, whether one will be punished at all. The first of these is the type of luck we've already been talking about: consequential luck, luck concerning the effects of one's actions. The drunk driver who kills a pedestrian versus one who does not. The hunter who kills another hunter in the bush versus one who does not. Attempted murder versus successful murder. Here's another example. You get angry and push somebody. That person slips, goes to the ground, hitting their head, and dying as a result. Now that's manslaughter. Or distracted driving. You take your eyes off the road to check a message on your cell phone. When you look up, you discover that you've drifted into the lane for oncoming traffic. If you're alone, you get back to your side of the road and nothing happens. If you hit another car, things get a lot worse. For many people sitting in jail today or suffering some other criminal penalties, there's somebody else who did exactly the same thing who's not being punished, not because they didn't get caught, but because, purely on account of luck, nothing bad happened. A second way in which luck can figure into punishment concerns circumstantial luck. Circumstantial luck refers to the situations that one finds oneself in. Let's go back to our twins. Both of them have the same quick temper. Either one of them, if they're provoked in a particular way, would erupt in a violent, murderous rage. However, one of the twins actually gets into a situation that triggers the rage, and for the other, that type of situation never arises. And let's assume that both people are ignorant of the fact that they have this disposition. The twins, we're assuming, have the same psychological dispositions, but the relevant circumstances arise for one, but not the other, and neither knew enough to prevent the circumstances from arising. We have to be careful to distinguish circumstantial luck from causal luck. Circumstantial luck imagines two people with the same psychological dispositions, but one of them ends up in circumstances where the disposition triggers criminal behavior, and the other never finds themselves in the relevant situation. In the case of causal luck, we're changing the events that have an influence on the type of person one becomes. This kind of luck is relevant to what got me interested in philosophy to start with. I recognized when I was in high school that if time travelers had kidnapped me and placed me in, say, Charleston, South Carolina in 1840, by 1860 I would have been a staunch defender of slavery in the Confederacy. I know this because almost every white person born in Charleston, South Carolina in 1840 became a staunch defender of the Confederacy by 1860. Why would I be any different? We can imagine a case in which our twins are born in Germany in 1920. One twin is adopted by a Jewish couple and moves to New Jersey. The other stays in Germany. One twin joins the German army in 1938, the other joins the U.S. Army. At the time the war ends, one twin is arrested and convicted of war crimes and crimes against humanity. The other ends the war as a decorated American war veteran. The point of the example is that if the twins had been switched, their fates would have been switched as well. Pure luck determines the fate of each infant. Finally, there's constitutive luck. Constitutive luck has to do with one's character. When homosexual acts were criminal, this was of little concern to those who were not homosexual. It only imposed a burden on those with sexual attractions to people of the same gender. We don't know what causes many of our characteristics, but people are born with certain dispositions to acquire certain traits, and some of those traits influence whether one will or will not engage in criminal activities. There's a famous case of a person whose character was shaped by luck, and that was the case of Phineas Gage. In the 1800s, Gage was a railroad worker, known to be reliable, responsible, and generally of good character. But one day, an accident resulted in an explosion that drove a metal rod through Gage's skull. It didn't kill him. In fact, physically, Gage made almost a full recovery. But after the accident, Gage was a changed man. He became rude, undependable, even violent. It turns out that part of the brain that the metal rod went through, the prefrontal cortex, is the part that's responsible for a person's behavior conforming to social norms. Once this part of the brain becomes damaged in Phineas Gage, his ability to conform to social norms became compromised. I would bet that few of us have had much to say about how experiences formed the encoding in the prefrontal cortex of our brain, which is responsible for how well our behavior conforms to social norms. Whether one's behavior conforms to the law depends in part on how this part of the brain develops. And it's actually one of the last parts of the brain to mature and is undergoing significant changes up into the mid-20s. In all of these ways, luck plays a role in whether one is guilty of a crime and the severity of that crime. We're not talking about luck influencing whether one gets caught or whether the police find enough evidence for a conviction. That type of luck is common enough and doesn't create any special philosophical problems. What we're talking about here is the luck involved in determining whether one commits the crime and the severity of the crime that one actually commits. Driving under the influence versus vehicular homicide. Negligent homicide versus reckless endangerment. Murder versus attempted murder, all being determined by factors over which one has no control and does not choose. The main issue here concerns the principle that the punishment should fit the crime. The amount of punishment you deserve is supposed to be proportional to the magnitude of your wrongdoing. Yet, if things over which you have no control would have been different, things that influence the type of person you are, the circumstances you find yourself in, and the consequences of what is perhaps just a short moment of inattention, You could be suffering legal penalties. Or maybe you are. Maybe you've experienced some of this. But the question is, how can different levels of punishment be justified based on these types of influences? That is the puzzle.